Welcome to Conversations with Des. I'm Des Blanchfield. I'm joined today by two industry experts in the area of data protection. I'm joined by Robert Passlow. Robert is the infrastructure team lead at Dialog Information Technology. Hi, Robert. Great to see you. Welcome to the show. Thanks for making time to join us.
Great to be here. Thanks, Des.
I'm also joined by David Rajkovic, who is the Area Vice President for Australia and New Zealand at Commvault. David, great to see you. Welcome to the show, and thanks for making time to join us.
Hello, Des. Thank you.
So folks, this is part of our customer story series, I should say. In this episode, we're going to be talking with a Commvault customer, Dialog Information Technology Australia, and we're going to be hearing from Robert Passlow. He's going to be talking about the challenge of data protection for cloud environments such as Microsoft Office 365, databases, virtual machines. And with that work that Robert and the team at Dialog Information Technology have done with their business partner, Commvault, to address the new and emerging challenges around data security, data protection, and the ever-present challenge of reducing the cost of business continuity. We're also going to be talking with David around the growing footprint of Commvault's Metallic offering and customers in Australia and New Zealand, and in particularly expansions in new regions, including Hong Kong, India, Malaysia, and Singapore. But gentlemen, before we dive into all of that, I wonder if we could just get a little bit of a segue on each of you. So Robert, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about Dialog Information Technology and what's a day in the life of an infrastructure team lead like currently for you?
Dialog Information Technology is a large technology company, privately owned. We've got over 1,200 team members throughout Australia in 6 offices. So we've got a large user base to deal with from an infrastructure perspective. Most of them are either on client sites or work from home or in our offices. So they are dispersed. Providing services can be from every aspect, a widely varying task. And we have to keep in front of the DR and BCP requirements around that. So, yeah.
Perfect. David, your amazing career spans over a decade and a half with a consistent focus on data, data management, and particular data protection. You joined Commvault just over a year ago, I believe, and effectively in the middle of the current global pandemic. What's a day in the life like for you as Area VP for Australia and New Zealand there at Commvault?
Oh, no day is the same, Des. I see myself as the chief customer advocate inside my business, and so talking to customers, talking to our partners about their needs to protect their data assets, forms a normal day for me. And really that means, working closely with those customers and partners to understand exactly what their requirements are, what their business challenges are, and then translating those challenges into technical solutions and business value outcomes. I think that's the best way to sum up my normal day. There is no normal day, but they're all very interesting.
Indeed, yes. My pet peeve these days is this phrase that people bandy around that we're turning the new normal, and I kind of laugh that there was no such thing as a new normal prior. I doubt there ever will be one going forward. Well, I'd like to talk about 3 key topics with each of you, and I'm just going to highlight these. I'd like to talk about the business challenge that you face, Robert, and particularly with Office 365 disaster recovery and business continuity, and the challenge around cost reduction with that. I'd also like to cover the technology solution as much as we can, and particularly how Metallic answered the call, as it were. And then I'd like to wrap us up with the whole journey to taking the solution into commercial operational status. So let's just start on the first one. Robert, the business challenge you faced, I wonder if you could just start with giving us a little bit of insight into that business challenge that you realized you had, the journey leading up to that realization that you needed a better technology solution to address data security and data protection and recovery. And particularly in the context of that ever-increasing adoption of cloud services, and I guess the risk surfaces that go with that. So maybe just give us a little bit of insight into the business challenge you faced and how you led up to realizing that you need to then find the right business partner, in particular Commvault, to help you with that.
Sure. So as a Microsoft Gold partner, we adopt Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, Office 365 heavily. With the demobilization of a lot of staff to work from home, as that increased in 2020, we found the existing built-in retention and backup solutions within Office 365 native were not quite meeting our requirements for backup and recovery. They were there, they worked, but we needed an interface that our technicians and our team members could use to point and click and do the recovery and restores and continue business as required. With Metallic, we effectively got a single pane of glass to manage all of our cloud backups and recovery. And the best thing is we didn't have to spin up any iaas instances or deploy any more on-premise infrastructure, which is really what we're after.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the key challenges, and as we get more and more edge solutions or endpoint solutions out there, the gap between them, the challenge of, as you said, spinning up infrastructure to actually implement it, run it, and then the ongoing maintenance operation when really you just want to consume a service that solves a business problem and get on to the next challenge. David, I wonder if you could walk us through Commvault's key role throughout this project with Dialog Information Technology and where your Metallic offering was able to address the key challenges, especially in the context of data protection and business continuity.
Yeah, I think the experience that Robert had and that Dialog I.T had with Commvault, is an example of our, standard mode of operation, when we're engaging with customers. So I've got a team that's basically located in all the major centres across Australia and New Zealand. And so Robert worked with the team based in Brisbane. So Tim Young and Dennis Dastor, as his business partners here. Really, our role here was to understand Dialog's data footprint, the applications and the platforms that they were using to generate that data, the policies that were required to protect that data, the people that would be involved in managing the system and the restoration of data, and then building a solution around that. Robert talked about the fact that they adopted a cloud-based collaboration platform, in this case, Microsoft 365, not uncommon, very common platform. What we're finding is that most businesses, particularly with the shift to remote work, have adopted some form of tool set to help them better communicate. Now, those tools are generating new and different types of data. And what we're finding is that the growth in data is often coming from, unstructured files being shared, more immediate communication amongst team members and, external parties within a business. And so, our role was to really understand the utilization of the platform, the type of data, and then put a solution together. As Robert said, and as the industry is shifting, the focus here is on delivering, solutions quickly. Time to value is a real meaningful equation inside our business. Being able to turn a data protection service on from the cloud means that the customer doesn't have to go through the design and build process. We have the services available. They avail themselves of those services. We build commercial models which are really simple to understand, either per user or capacity-based licensing, and they pay for what they use. And really it was the Commvault team's job to work closely with Robert and the Dialog team, understand their challenges and put a solution together. And we were able to do that very quickly. A lot of good engagement on both sides, but once we understand the requirements, fitting the solution to those requirements is something that really happened quickly.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to stay with you for a moment, David, just to talk a bit more about the actual technology solution itself, and particularly a bit more detail around how Metallic as an offering answered the call, as it were. I wonder if you could tell us about the technology solution itself that you went with. And I guess that journey with the team from Commvault, from design, discovery, through to actual running trials and deployment, and then the final implementation. And maybe just touch around some of the things like Metallic availability in various regions, because I know it's now available in something like 30 countries around the world. But take us, David, just through that journey of like the initial outreach from the team with Robert and co to sort of, yes, we've got a problem. What can you do to help us with it, through to each of the key phases. I guess what that customer engagement journey was like, so that our audience can understand what it would be like for them in a similar situation.
It's a good question. I mean, Commvault is a long-standing vendor in the data protection space. We've been, in business for around 25 years. Metallic is a new offering, but effectively it's all of Commvault's capabilities packaged up and delivered as a cloud service. Now, we've had that service out in market for around 2 years. We launched in Australia a little bit over 12 months ago. And by launching in Australia, what that means is that we had the service available onshore, built on top of Microsoft's Azure platform. Now, the focus for Metallic is to deliver services that are applicable to specific workloads where a customer or a business needs a data protection solution. Here with Dialog, it was really focused on the collaboration platform around Microsoft 365. And what we've offered here is a very simple solution where we're able to back up the email platform, we're able to back up the SharePoint platform and the Teams platform, and we give to Dialog the capability to do this on a per user basis. We store all of their backup data on our cloud, and we offer them a per user per month price. Very simple in terms of the economics of the solution, a lot of complexity in the back end, but obviously that complexity is something that we manage for our customers. And so it's really providing very complex capability that people usually associated with, enterprise grade solutions as a cloud service. And that's something that we're really focused on bringing to market. We're constantly evolving the solution and the capabilities. We're adding more and more capability every month. As you said, we've launched more broadly, and so we've got points of presence now across Asia, key markets in Hong Kong, Singapore, India, Malaysia. The rollout continues. We'll see more and more points of presence for the Metallic solution as we expand. But currently, we're covering all of the major geographies. So North America, EMEA, and now across Asia Pacific and Japan, including Australia and New Zealand.
It's very exciting. I had the privilege of actually being in at the launch in October 2019 in Denver, Colorado. I had near front row seat to the keynote opening on the day, and I just remember getting kind of like the shiver on my sort of down my spine, these hairs racing on my arm, going, finally, this is so great. This is like, this is a solution we've been waiting for some time. And in fact, I believe in about a week's time, it's Metallic's second birthday. Happy birthday, Metallic.
Happy birthday to Metallic. Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of the market has been waiting for an enterprise grade data protection as a service offering. It's quite incongruent that, a lot of the growth that's in, customers or businesses' data estates is coming from cloud-based workloads, either workloads built upon infrastructure as a service or software as a service. It's incongruous that those workloads are being backed up with traditional infrastructure-based data protection solutions. Now, if you have a native cloud service, you can back it up with a native data protection service.
Indeed, it's like strapping a horse to the front of a Ferrari supercar and wondering why it's not performing at full speed. Robert, I wonder if I can come back to you for a moment, just around the technology solution itself. What's been the biggest standout eureka moment or aha moment for you as you realize that selecting Commvault as your partner for this challenge and the discovery that the Metallic offering was the right technology solution fit? That must have been an amazing moment for you to realize that not only had you selected the right partner of choice to address this journey of resolving the issue, but also it was just, from what I can tell, one of the best fits technology-wise to your overall solution, which meant you didn't have to be experts in this space, even though you are a technology business, that you could consume it as a service and consume it immediately, as you said, without standing up any infrastructure as a service potentially, or being experts in this area of business continuity and DR and the infrastructure required for that. What was it like when you had that little moment where it's like, well, actually, we're in the right track now and get on with actually implementing it?
It was great. We looked for a backup software vendor that could deliver a SaaS solution for our 365 and cloud environments. Metallic was, and Commvault was one of the vendors we chose to do a proof of concept with. And it really was that easy. From the time we went to trial in the morning, that afternoon we had data backed up. We were able to do trial restores of objects in mailboxes and SharePoint.
Wow.
It really was surprisingly that easy. We didn't have to do capacity planning and forecasting calculations for iaas infrastructure. The thought and the requirements just weren't there. Going from trial and proof of concept up into operation was as simple as contacting Metallic, buying some licenses, getting them applied, and our user count increased to what it is to take full production backups and snapshots. So it really for us was that easy.
So to me, it seems that, I mean, I've had 23 odd years of sort of data center infrastructure background myself. And, I've been through all those challenges you've highlighted, capacity planning and putting up business cases and getting cost models together and looking at when the break even was and then an ROI to the business benefit. I mean, what you're saying there, if I can just paraphrase, is essentially same day you were able to essentially get access to Metallic and actually run a trial and back up some data and prove that it worked by recovering objects from this case, I think you mentioned Office 365 email, and demonstrate that it not only functioned, but it worked as it says on the brochure. But then your journey was almost, to me, it seems like your experience with Metallic was akin to Office 365, and that is you try it out and it's a per seat license on a per month basis. It seems that like now you've been able to resolve the data protection and data recovery, business continuity and DR solution all in one, with essentially the same experience, but in one case, it's an office automation platform or messaging platform. In the other case, it's a data protection solution. Is that a fair outline of kind of the experience you've had?
That's exactly the experience we had. We didn't expect it to be that simple. And I didn't expect it to accelerate that quickly. It did. And that's exactly what we ultimately wanted.
Wow.
We really got a great result.
So I wonder, I mean, just to touch on a couple of those points, and then I'd come back to you, David, with a couple more questions around that space. But this journey going from those key stages of, as you said, the trials and essentially putting it into use, and then essentially working with Metallic and the Commvault team to put it in operation. Can we just quickly touch on that journey to the solution going into commercial operational status? Because I think it's easy for people to misunderstand just how seamlessly, painlessly that happened. I mean, you ran your trials, you essentially implemented a solution, rolled it out. Just walk us through those key points again, just in brief, that journey to taking the solution to operational status, because it seems like it could be considered too easy, but it seems to me it's a very logical step from other SaaS-based solutions such as Microsoft Office 365 you've used to now Metallic, essentially backup as a service. Walk us through those two key 3 points again, just briefly. I mean, essentially you did the trials, you proved it worked, you then essentially reached out to Metallic, and then what were the key steps between that first conversation, say, okay, let's go into production now, to where essentially you turn up on Monday and you no longer had a DR or BCP problem, it was just a per seat cost?
Yeah, so we, from the time we set up the trial and connected the tenants, that gave us, I think we've done 25 mailboxes and and user objects. That was done and backing up before, Exchange was done and backing up before SharePoint was set up. Teams was done by the time SharePoint was finished. We kind of sat back and went, well, that was quick. That was easy. What are we missing? Went out and got some pricing and confirmed the pricing. Applied that to our user counts and across our business units. I did ask Tim and the Brisbane team the question, is there more to it? There wasn't. There were some upcoming features that we would soon be adopting as well. And we went ahead and purchased. The tenant got its license count increased. Effectively, the existing policies and rules that we'd set up in the POC applied to the rest of our tenant. And
wow.
Data volumes increased. From then, we really haven't changed it.
Robert, what was it like to wake up the next Monday and realize that DR BCP was a solution? It was a done deal for you, and it was a cost-effective solution compared to what you had before, and also you were able to achieve it in what sounds like a matter of days.
Yeah, it was really good. We're talking 24, 48 hours
Wow.
for the first snap. So, yeah, it was good.
Fantastic. I'm sure there are a lot of senior business and technology decision makers are going to be tuning into this, following your very same journey. David, this is no doubt a regular journey that you take with a lot of your customers and clients, from their discovery. They have a business problem, just as Robert did, related to their data, to a full working solution that's operationalized. What's that journey like for most other customers? Where do organizations start with you? What are the key steps that they normally go through with you to get to the same thing? Is it akin to kind of what Robert's outlined now? Are there any sort of major differences?
It is. Although, we do have some customers who, want to look at, multiple different offerings, including our, traditional software-based solutions. And so often, we spend time with them, comparing capability, Metallic capability to traditional Commvault capability. And there's often a discussion around, TCO of those different solutions. And it really depends on, where that customer's at in terms of, their investment in data center capability, and whether they have a path forward to continue to manage those data center assets, or whether they're looking for a path forward which minimizes the footprint of traditional infrastructure and moves to cloud. And so there can be some complexity in the comparison of the different models, but really the journey that Robert describes is quite typical. And one of the things that we tend to overinvest in that initial engagement. We want to make sure that the customer understands the value of the solution. We spend a lot of time with customers setting up the policies, because as Robert describes, it's a very simple process to move from trial to production. It's not like we have to go through that engagement again, redefine policies, and the work that's done in the trial process is lost. It's really for us a valuable investment in terms of understanding the customer's requirements and needs, setting up the solution. We're quite confident that if we're in a trial, the customer will like what they see. Our conversion from trial to production is very high. And so my team's very engaged in wanting to go through this activity with all of our customers and prospects. And so it's generally a very streamlined process. Conversion's high. It is very, very simple. It's very simple. All of the value that cloud brings in terms of economics and scalability and elasticity is there. Robert made the point that there wasn't a need to go through a detailed capacity planning exercise, which is where, based on traditional infrastructure solutions, you need to understand your storage requirements. You need to understand, what your retention requirements are, what your backup requirements are. All of those inputs go into quite complex calculations. And then there's often tweaking to say, okay, well, we need to fit things into a certain budget here. It's a per user, per month price. And it's really, give us your data. Give us your data, we'll help you protect it.
I imagine for companies of all different sizes, all organizations, whether it's commercial enterprise, whether it's a state government or a council or federal government, often we have experts focus on data challenges, whether it's file systems or backups or database administration or whatever it might be. But invariably, most organizations don't have the resources they'd ideally like to cover all of these and essentially sleep at night knowing they've got the best data protection solution with DR and BCP. To me, it seems, at the risk of sounding a little sycophantic, that having Commvault, and particularly Metallic, as an offering available to them, now essentially bolts that expertise to them at the hip, so they can, in lockstep with you and vice versa, know that they can focus on their core business. If they're an airline or a bank, be the best bank they can be, knowing that you're going to be the best business partner they can possibly have in that expertise of data protection and backup recovery, BCP. What for our audience, just listening to this, it often does sound too easy. But if you were to break it down into 3 or 4 key steps, what are the ideal steps that you have people go through from the point they reach out to you to then do some discovery, do the trial, and then go into production? What does that sort of look like if you were to paraphrase it for our people to sort of take away from this and actually action for themselves?
Look, I think the first step, and I think we've talked about the steps to get into trial and into production, and they're fairly straightforward. I think it's coming to a fundamental understanding of which data assets you need to protect. Rob spoke about the fact that due to a number of different factors, probably remote work being one of them, that they had distributed workforce, and then had a reliance on collaboration tools that saw a growth in data that they hadn't experienced before. The fact that Dialog came to a realization that that data was important to them, was important to their business, that it needed to be protected, I think that that is the first and most important step that any customer can take, to say that this data, if we were to be without it for whatever reason, whether that be a technical failure, whether it be a security breach or a ransomware incident, this data is important to us and must be restored if there is an outage. Once there's a realization of that requirement, then moving forward is really quick for us. There's some work that needs to be done to educate customers that their SaaS provider will deliver them a level of service and a level of data protection that may meet their requirements, but probably won't when you look into the detail. Most cloud service providers will give you SLAs on availability, and they will give you some SLAs around data protection. But if you look into the fine print, the responsibility for protection of that data, for backup of that data, always sits with the customer and the end user. And so engaging with an organization like Commvault with a solution like Metallic helps manage that risk, the risk that sits on the end user around any loss of data. And
that's
in
great
terms of
points
your
there.
question around the steps, that's the most important step. Once that realization has been made, then we can come in and help.
Fantastic. Well, indeed, and I think it's like many business challenges, isn't it? That we can only, what do they say? The Donald Rumsfeld issues, or whatever it is. That the known knowns, the unknown knowns, and the unknown unknowns, and those that you can't solve a problem unless you actually recognize you've got it in the first place. My favorite trick is to be sitting down with the senior executive and close their laptop screen, say, right, your data's not available. How do you run the business now? And and then they just watch the look on their face for a second. Well, I mean, gentlemen, it's been fantastic to talk to you about all of these. David, I wonder if we can get you to wrap us up with a little bit of what I like to refer to as a bit of crystal ball gazing. If you were to gaze into a virtual crystal ball for a moment, next 12 to 18 months are going to hold some interesting new challenges for organizations as we reverse that process that for a lot of knowledge workers and other mobile workers was kind of work remote or work at home in many cases. And a number of these issues we've been talking about around data silos moving, data sprawl, certainly cloud adoption, moving data into different areas that we hadn't necessarily had, certainly at endpoints like laptops or virtual machines. Next 12 to 18 months, we're going to essentially be reversing some of that, but not all of it. And as you said, outages and other things are a normality. We certainly saw that of late with many very large social media platforms being offline, albeit that some businesses may not fail if their social media goes offline. It's a good analogy for what happens to SaaS solutions, and that is that there's no guarantee they're not going to go offline. What happens to your data if they do? Next 12 to 18 months, David, I wonder if you could maybe give us your thoughts around your medium to long-term views of upcoming sort of trends, challenges, and certainly opportunities and topics that organizations should be talking about now and actioning in the short to medium term. Because I imagine, from my mind, there's very little doubt that organizations need now more than ever to be addressing their data protection challenges by leveraging the likes of Metallic and the offering from Commvault. But as they prepare for the new challenges of 2020 and what that might bring, and the world aims to ease out of what we've been calling lockdown 2.0 through 2021, and that sort of post-pandemic world, whatever that might be, what are some of the things that you think they should be talking about at board level and across their business units to sort of look at what do we do next, who do we should be talking to, and maybe potentially what Commvault and Metallic can do to help us?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I joined Commvault 12 months ago because I saw a real need in the market and a need that the company was fulfilling and could fulfill. The investment in solutions like Metallic to shift, what was a traditional software-based company into a modern cloud-based service delivery organization is one that opens up a lot of scope. I think to your point, there's around, yes, there's been a pandemic and we're, hopefully coming out of that pandemic, the change to work styles has been quite significant, and I think is one that can't be wound back. I think there's an increasing and ever more critical reliance on technology as a differentiator. And so, all businesses operate in a competitive market. They're using technology to a competitive advantage. That technology is generating data, which can drive business value for those businesses, for their customers, for their partners. And so it's critical. And I think now more and more well understood, and you asked, questions that should be, asked at board level. I think it's more and more well understood that a company's data estate is effectively its crown jewels. And so I think this question about whether the data should be protected is one that's been put to bed. The data of any organization needs to be protected. It's a business asset. It's really about how you can protect it most effectively, most cost effectively, and what you need to do to respond to situations where there has been an outage or a disruption. What are your critical systems? What is tier 0, tier 1? It's really an understanding of that level of criticality, and then the dependencies and interdependencies of different systems to actually restore functionality. I think that's a conversation that will continue to surface with our customers and with the broader market around the readiness of any organization to respond to critical outages, whether they be based on technical failure, as you said, disruption of service from your technology partners, whether they be delivering business functionality or consumer-based functionality like Facebook, and how you can respond quickly to maximum effect. Because I think a day is a long time for a business to be disrupted. A week is a long time. Anything beyond that, I think that there's a fundamental understanding at board and CXO levels that brands do not recover very well and very quickly where customer confidence and customer sentiment has been damaged. And so it's really about putting capability in place to allow you to maintain uptime and maintain service to your customer base, and to respond if anything should disrupt that service. That's critical, and that won't go away. That's a conversation that we have today. It's a conversation I'm sure I'll be having in 12 months' time, in 18 months' time, in 24 months' time. It's certainly one that's driving growth for Commvault, and it's driving our relevance in the market to our customers. We're a very relevant technology provider because of the value of the data assets that we protect.
Fantastic. Well, you've answered three key things there, more than anything that I've seen at board level in the last 3 to 5 years, particularly the last 24, which I think now are in many ways are moot points. And that is, should our data be protected? That's a no-brainer. The answer is yes. Is there a solution that can now protect our data, particularly in the new SaaS world that we live in? And I think, again, that's a moot point. The answer is yes. Metallic and Commvault as a whole can do that. And should we be having a conversation about that now rather than tomorrow? And I think you've just clearly pointed out that the answer to that is yes as well. And I think for our audience who are tuning into this at any time, should be looking at those three key takeaways. That is that your data should be protected. There's no question. Your data can be protected. Commvault and Metallic's offering as a whole can do that for you today. As Robert's outlined, they've successfully done that recently with their project. And this is a conversation that needs to happen immediately. Well, Robert Passlow, it's been fantastic to chat with you about your role as infrastructure team lead there at Dialog Information Technology. And congratulations on this amazing outcome. And I'm really glad you can wake up on your Mondays and know that you slept well over the weekend as a result of your partnership with Commvault and the Metallic solution. And David, it's been absolutely a pleasure to talk with you and hear all these insights around what you've done with Robert and the team there at Dialog Information Technology. And certainly some of the great insights and guidance you've offered there as your summary. Gentlemen, really a great pleasure to talk to you both. Congratulations again on that particular great outcome. And we look forward to having you back on the show again soon at some stage to talk about it in more detail. But in the meantime, stay safe. Thanks for your time. And it's been an absolute pleasure to spend some time with you.